When we talked with you about implementing the AAC device, this something as simple as saying, okay, this is the talker, really just kind of helped us remember that if we're leaving the house to go somewhere and we're like, oh, we're just going to run out for a minute. Oh, we don't need to bring it. That's not okay, because if we're in the car and they want to talk to us, how are they going to talk to us if they don't have their talker?
You're absolutely right. If they are learning to use that as a way of communicating and we do not give them full access at all times, it is like taping their mouth shut. I mean, it's just if they were a verbal communicator.
If I love Oreos, but I run out of Oreos, and I want more Oreos, but I don't have them, I should still be able to talk about the fact that I want more Oreos.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Courtney Peebles, and I'm the owner and founder of Solobo Toys. And today on Neuroplay, we're going to be talking with Sarah Sweeney, who is a speech-language pathologist and myofunctional therapist. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I'm super excited to really just ask questions. Even though I know a lot of the answers, I'm still going to ask them anyway, because if people don't already know, you have been with us way before we even started Solobo. For everybody who doesn't know you, state your name and then give us a brief overview of you and your practice.
Okay. My name is Sarah Sweeney. I am a speech-language pathologist and the owner of Sunshine Speech Therapy, which is a little private practice in Mechanicsville, Virginia, which is just outside of Richmond. And I specialize in working with kiddos who are working on their language development, and I embrace neuroaffirmative practices.
Nice. Oh, I don't know if I've ever told you this. This is really random, but years ago when I found you online when I was looking for speech therapists, I found you on Google, and I was looking through the website, and I sent it to my brother because this was around the time that my brother got diagnosed autistic. And I was like, can you look through this and make sure that I'm not going to somebody who won't be neuro-affirming? So around the time that I started coming to you is when, you were still handling communication. It was just you in the top part of a different building. Can you just explain how you got to that place? Because I know that what you did before that, but
yeah,
I probably don't.
Yes, I will share. So I started out as a speech pathologist in the public school setting, and I was there for about 3 years. And it just so happened that my caseload, because you have no control over your caseload in the public schools, which is okay. But it ended up being really great for me because the elementary schools that I was housed at had predominantly a caseload of autistic students. There were the different classrooms within the county, including one, what they call the regional program, which is when the public schools are not able to provide the supports needed for kids to really be able to thrive in school. It's sort of the last placement prior to being moved to a private school with possibly better supports. So I had every kid from the regional program on my caseload. And so it was I already was super interested in AAC. One of the reasons I decided to be a speech pathologist is because I was super fascinated by AAC. And I went and got my graduate degree from the University of Virginia, where Philip Blanca, shout out to Philip Blanca, is a professor who has written a book on AAC. He's
okay.
Anyway, so all of this is to say, by a stroke of luck, I was working with many, many kids that were AAC users. So I got to really deeply familiarize myself with that. Near the end of my 3rd year, COVID turned everything on its head.
Yeah.
And we all locked down. And so I was providing therapy as best I could to the children on my caseload virtually. And as time progressed, I realized there was a deep, deep need for these children who needed so much support with their language development to continue with in-person therapy So I sort of figured out a way to do that as safely as possible. I take COVID very, very seriously. And yet, if everyone was testing negative, if everybody was asymptomatic, I started going into homes to provide therapy. And I did not renew my school contract that summer.
Yeah.
Because I enjoyed so much. At that time, of course, I did not have a brick and mortar. So I'm going into homes, I'm meeting families, I'm building those connections. I'm loving it so much more than the school setting. And Sunshine Speech Therapy just kind of slowly and steadily grew from that. And so I've been in a brick and mortar, as you know, been in a brick and mortar for a little over 2 years. We just moved into our new office this past July.
Yeah.
And we are serving lots of kids, and it is very exciting.
Yeah. So when we talked with you about implementing the AAC device, it was something you said that we don't have to call, like, we were like, well, what do we call this? And this is how we called it, the talker. Mm-hmm. But this something as simple as saying, okay, this is the talker. Really just kind of helped us remember that, like, if we're leaving the house to go somewhere and we're like, oh, we're just going to run out for a minute. Oh, we don't need to bring it. Like, that's not okay, because if we're in the car and they want to talk to us, how are they going to talk to us if they don't have their talker?
Yes.
And so, like, kind of changing the way that you think about these things so that people do realize that it is literally somebody's voice. That changes so much. And I really feel like the perspective, at least from a lot of people that I followed or, like, listened to, the perspective seems to be that they're like, oh, it's just one way people talk, but it's just as valid as a language as literally any other language.
Exactly. And you're absolutely right. If they are learning to use that as a way of communicating, and we do not give them full access at all times, it is like taping their mouth shut.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, if they were a verbal communicator, it's just taking that away. And I love that you guys were so receptive to that, and it's just done beautiful things for your family and your boys. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And, I remember you also saying that, there was something that I think we had taken a picture of something that was, like, in the therapy space, and then you, like, didn't have it there anymore. So I was like, oh, I'll just take off the button later. And you were like, no, don't do that. And I was like, what? And you were like, no, like, you're taking away, like, even if it's not there anymore, like, that's okay. You shouldn't take away his ability to talk about it.
Yes.
And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Because it's like, if I love Oreos, but I run out of Oreos and I want more Oreos, but I don't have them, I should still be able to talk about the fact that I want more Oreos.
Heck yeah. Yeah, you should be more Oreos. You're exactly right. And I think that this was your experience. My hope is that parents never feel like I'm being condescending or anything like that and guiding them through the process, because it's a brand new way of thinking. It's a really it's a very meta way of thinking about language and communication, right? It makes a lot of sense. You're like, oh, we don't have that. Okay, take it away. Oh, wait. If they were a verbal communicator, verbal speech, oh my gosh, yes. Okay, yes, we do need to keep that, right?
Yeah.
We never want to detract from vocabulary.
Oh, yeah. I guess we approach things from the idea that we don't know, and the only thing that we can do is listen to you, and just try to kind of meet our kids where they're at. And having that mindset really kind of, like, eliminated any room for, like, oh, she told us we don't do that. Like, any annoyance with that, like, it removed any of that, because we were like, we are not the experts in this. We are just the ones carrying out what is happening in an 45-minute session. Like, we are just carrying out all of that at home.
Yeah.
So yeah, we never felt like, oh, she said this, because it wasn't our area of expertise.
Right. And it worked out really, really well.
Yeah. And, it's like now we're 2 years later, and they still use their devices. And it's like I can't even imagine a world where we don't even have them because, like nowadays, Stoney actually talks and uses sign language and uses AAC device. He does all the things. And so it's like I can't even imagine a world where he doesn't have it because he teaches himself things on it. So that's the really cool thing to see, okay, 2 years later, this is where we're at. And it's still being used, but it's being used in a different way, but still a really good way.
Yeah. Oh, it's so much fun to see. It's really
I think people miss the fact that, which this is something that we heard all the time. People would be like, oh, well, if you use this device, isn't it going to keep them from talking? And it is the complete opposite. It is totally the opposite.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And research shows that, right? Most of the research done that I'm aware of right now is really looking at ASL, the use of ASL with language development and speaking children, how using ASL will only support their verbal speech if they're going to be verbal communicators. It is the exact same thing with AAC. There just hasn't been as much research to my knowledge. There might be.
Yeah.
In this moment, I don't know. But anything that is enriching language development, whether it's pictures or signs or voice generating speech devices with images or symbols, it's only language development begets language development begets language development. Nothing gets in the way. And it is a very, very human instinct to use whatever communication method is easiest.
Yeah.
Right? So if a child requires AAC to begin their language development, they're not verbally speaking yet. That doesn't mean they're choosing not to speak and they're preferring AAC, because it is a whole heck of a lot easier if everything is able to come out verbally to do that. We always say with human beings tend to default to the easiest method of anything, and that includes communication. So always tell parents, your child, one of the biggest challenges I think SLPs have in conversations with parents, especially in the initial stages of evaluation and therapy, is really getting parents to understand no child is choosing not to speak or being stubborn.
Yeah.
That's not happening.
No.
So, and that can be a tricky one. To convince people of, but most families, they get it. They get it once we chat about it.
And I know obviously we implemented AAC with us, but have there been other families who you've suggested it to and they've gone through with it? Absolutely. Yes. And then we have others who are resistant, and it breaks my heart because I think it's a really, really great idea. But as the therapist, it is my job to respect the family and their wishes and what they think is best. Yeah. It's hard because, I know you want to help everybody.
Yes, I do.
But you walk a fine line in helping them, but also giving them space to just do what they want to do.
Absolutely.
But it's with us, we never ever felt and still don't feel any pressure to do things a certain way, or we just kind of follow our kids' lead, and that's really that. And I think that that's a good thing. And as they get older, they'll tell us how they want to do things.
Exactly.
And that is, even when they're younger, they will too, but in their own little way. And that's why, we thought that Stone took so quickly to the AAC device, because he was like, oh my gosh, this is the way that I can tell them what I want.
Exactly. My favorite moment in really any language development, any way a child is learning language, but it's an extra special feeling and experience when a child learns to say, no, go away. Leave me alone with your AAC device. And I mean, I experienced this a lot in the schools. And again, I was met with a lot of resistance in that old school setting where I would say, no, we have to kind of honor this right now. Or if we really can't, we have to say, oh my gosh, you're telling me no. I hear you telling me no, you don't want to do this, but the thing is we have to go for this fire drill. Like if it's something where you really have to do it, but acknowledging the AAC user and their message, no matter what the response has to be, is so stinking important. And that is super fun when I'm like, oh, they're advocating for themselves. Here we go. That is a very important skill. And it's very exciting. And the parents are like, wait a minute, I don't like this. And I'm like, any kid is going to do this, right?
Oh, yeah. No, totally. And I think one of the things that we did was we put on the device, like photos of like the favorite shows. And then once he realized that he could click Sesame Street and we turned Sesame Street on, his eyes were like, oh my gosh, this is, and then he was like clicking the other buttons. He was like, turn them all on. And I was like,
yes,
okay, we're clicking, we're making it happen.
Yes, some of my favorite memories of in-home therapy is working with a particular child who the shows were really the only thing that was motivating at that time. And man, we'd turn on the TV and he would tell me what to watch, and he'd only want to watch, those specific parts of a show or maybe the credits. Oh, yeah. So then we would learn to like press back and more. And I just had the remote going, and it was so much fun. And he felt so empowered. Like, oh my gosh, I can communicate what I want. And it's also, I'm being heard and I'm being respected. And she's honoring that. It was really, really special.
Well, and two, taking a situation is something as like turning on a show and like pulling from it all the different things that you can teach with language is a skill that not a lot of people can just like look at a situation and like think, oh, I'm going to go forward, backward for the credits. Like not everybody thinks in that depth of the possibilities of the development from a specific situation like that. And like fast forward to, when we like came up with the idea of Solobo, you were like, I have all these ideas of how you could use it. And that we were like, never thought of that. And we still have this experience with so much. We're like, oh, never thought of that.
Yeah.
But it's because it's, there's, if you look at something at face value, then you will approach it as if it's just that. But if you look at something where it's like way bigger, then you have obviously much more room for possibilities.
Absolutely. I think, there are so many different types of speech therapy. There's so many different demographics, ages, disorders, speech pathologists treat. But I feel like, especially with pediatrics, you have to have this sort of, I almost liken it to improv.
Yeah.
You have to be in tune. It's like they say, like, always say yes, right? Give it the yes, where I'm like, okay, like, what is going to work right here, right now? Oh, cool. I prepared this whole structured lesson for this child, and they're like, I don't want anything to do with that. Well, guess what? We're not going to have a productive session. So it's just, that's one of the reasons, especially with my young language learners, like your sons, I'm like, I have toys. I just have toys there. I'm like, what are we going to play with? What are we going to do? I have no plan. Let's do this. Yeah. We're just eliciting language, connection, and communication.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. You have a theater background and Julie also has a theater background. So I really do feel like those elements like help, because you guys are similar, like, and she can go into something and like, do the same thing, like pull all these ideas out. And so it's like you guys are very similar in your background, so maybe theater is the key.
Maybe. So I'm so into being neuroaffirmative. We're not sitting in a chair, we're on the floor. I've got 3 toys that I know you're gonna love. I'm following your lead, I'm respecting you. And then I just get in that headspace of every therapist is this way, I'm this way, so surely most other people are doing it this way. And then I get families that come in, and just families I've worked with in the past, that are like, the person they were working with had them sitting in a chair the entire time and were like, I'm going to have you sit in a chair, 3-year-old, and put a puzzle together. And that's what we're doing. And it just still continues to blow my mind where there's this rigid way of thinking.
Yeah.
That therapy needs to look like a child sitting at a table being still and quiet, because that's not how young children, at the very least, want to play or learn at all.
It's so funny, like the expectations that are put on kids.
Yeah.
Like most adults can't even uphold them.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely not. It's really unreal.
Like if I were to tell somebody like, sit in a chair, stay there, you can't touch your phone, you can't like do anything, you have to just sit there and listen, people wouldn't be able to do that.
No,
I'm
absolutely
sure
not.
there would be somebody who would be able to do it, but ultimately people are like fidgeting, or people are like checking their phone, or you know, or getting up to go to the bathroom, or getting up to go get water or something. Like
Absolutely.
it's like unrealistic.
Super unrealistic and not productive. And so if anyone's listening and that's what therapy looks like for their child, it is very, I would encourage you to explore other therapists.
Well, and I feel like over the past 2 years, like just since, we've been researching like these things about speech therapy and all of that, I feel like there has been more of a shift for speech therapists specifically to make things more play-based, which I think is great. And I started to see it some with like other specialists, and now I've been hearing more about like actual like family therapists being more play-based. And it's like, I hope that it continues that way, because ultimately like kids learn the best through play.
Yes.
And it's like play looks like many, many, many different things.
Yes.
But what matters is that you play based on how the specific child likes to play, and then you can learn so much.
Exactly. Language can be supported, expanded on, and facilitated in any context. In any context, even if that means we're spending the majority of the session talking about how wheels turn and looking at them. You know? Like, absolutely. And I think that I'm sure that via social media and other, OTs, speech paths that you've been talking to, there's a lot out there about how SLPs, I'm not sure about OTs, but SLPs used to write play goals. Like the child will play, I can't even think of what the wording is because I've never had these goals, but like basically a child will play appropriately with a toy. It's like they won't, line them up or...
Oh, yes.
Yeah, oh my, like, and it's just like, that was a thing for a very long time.
Yeah.
Like, saying they're playing wrong.
Or that they don't pretend play.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I can't stand pretend play. I really, really pushed myself to do it if my kids want to do it, but I'm like...
It's not your thing.
It's not my thing.
It's not your thing. And it's not, a lot of kids, it's not their thing either.
Yeah.
And so just saying, like, this is a superior way of playing is just absolutely bananas.
Got a lot of work to do.
Got a lot of work. I believe you can do anything. Like, you.
Oh.
You're like, I'm going to figure out how to make a toy company. I'm going to make a children's book and learn how to illustrate it, too. It's fantastic.
Oh.
So I feel like you will be able,
After I did the children's book, which you're in the children's book,
Oh, yes, it's me.
It's you. It's, I really was like, it would be so cool to do this again. But I told Daniel recently, I was like, I feel like I slept through drawing that. I feel like I was just like a zombie drawing it because it's so like intense.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't even know what I did or how I did it.
It doesn't surprise me. I understand that. You're like, I did it, and how do I replicate that?
It's been cool since the book has released. Like, a lot of speech therapists have bought it, and they've just said that they're really excited to, like, share it with their clients and stuff like that. And so I'm really interested to see or hear how people like if people actually like learn about the device from it. You know what I mean? Like if it's like if somebody comes into your office and they see it on the bookshelf and they take it off, they're like, I've never seen something like this before. Like I really hope that those types of things happen. Because I mean, I didn't know what it was until we started coming to see you. So I know that a lot of people don't know what it is.
No, there's very limited awareness right now of AAC, which is a great segue into October is AAC Awareness Month.
Yes. The book is out for everyone. Yes. And you have your copies and people started grabbing theirs. So if you haven't checked out the book yet, definitely go to our website, or it's on Amazon, all the ways that Sterling communicates, and you'll see Sarah in the book. She is like on the second page. So if you'd kind of be hard to miss if you scroll through the book.
Yes. And I have to say thank you so much, because I never in my wildest dreams, when I was like, I want to specialize in AAC, did I think I would be in a book. It's it's so cool.
No, I couldn't think of a different character to be in place of you. I figured it should just be you.
It's life. And I like it.
Well, thank you again for coming on, and I know I'll be seeing you very soon.
You will indeed. Thanks so much for having me.
I had really good conversations with Sarah, and I hope that you guys enjoyed it. If you did, definitely like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more.